EWTN.com, or you can text your question to Barbara. Text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a response. Text your first name and your question, message, and data rates may apply. I'm Jack Williams, the lovely and talented Jeff Burson producing the program today. Your call screeners, Mr. Matt Gubensky, and handling all of our social media endeavors, also Jeff Burson. How many hats can one man wear? And our host, only doing one job today, as she does every week.
Right.
The lovely and talented Barbara McGuigan. Barbara, how are you?
I'm great, but don't be fooled. This isn't my only job.
Whatever.
Okay, no worries.
You're just jealous now because we gave Jeff credit for multitasking.
More jobs.
So. All right, here's a job for you. Answer this email.
Okay.
Constance writes in and she says, "Hi, considering the locations of Planned Parenthood, are there any statistics of what percentage of funds Planned Parenthood receives from Medicaid? I have heard that Planned Parenthood is helpful in assisting pregnant women have their abortion paid for by Medicaid, guiding them through the process if they don't already have it. And it's frustrating to understand why more African Americans are not pro-life considering the genocide of their race. Are there ministries that are reaching out to them specifically, as well as Hispanics, to bring awareness to these statistics considering they are being targeted? Thank you, and God bless you for what you do." And that's from Constance.
Oh, Constance, thank you for this email. And I think in order to get everyone on the same page, she was thinking about the statistics that I gave last week from Henry Flowers IV. He is the founder of Protecting Black Life. And that is, let me give you that, issuesforlife.org is where you can find this full story. If you want to see the maps where he has the red dots and the blue dots, you go to protectingblacklife.org. So here's what he said. Good Henry said 79% of its 165 surgical abortion facilities, Planned Parenthood I'm talking about, are within walking distance of Black, American, or Hispanic, Latino neighborhoods. And what Henry has revealed is that 62% of Planned Parenthood abortion facilities are within 2 miles of Black American neighborhoods and 64% near Hispanic or Latino neighborhoods, making them what he calls targeted neighborhoods. So again, if you want to see the maps on this, because Planned Parenthood will, I mean, they say a lot more than their prayers, right? And so they are denying this, of course, that they target minorities, but the maps show conclusively that they continue to target minorities. So this is, I think, what Constance was referring to. Okay, so now, how much does the government pay to Planned Parenthood? Well, we've talked about this a lot. This is they get $528 million last year, which is like $500 million. That was in their latest annual report, and that totals more than 40% of Planned Parenthood's total $1.3 billion in revenue for the year. Now, what programs are funding that money? Because Constance mentioned Medicaid. Those public funds, and once again, read taxpayer dollars, come from 2 programs. Medicaid, the health care program targeted at lower income Americans, and Title X, a federal family planning program that likewise primarily serves lower income Americans. The overwhelming majority of federal funding to Planned Parenthood comes from Medicaid, 75%. And this is not a pro-life figure. This is according to a Planned Parenthood spokesman. So that pretty much answers that part of the question. If you look up Kristen Hawkins, she's the president of Students for Life of America. She says, according to their own annual report, Planned Parenthood saw, this is another good fact, saw 2.5 million clients in 2015, which is down from 3.1 million in 2006. And while that number may seem high, it means that 98% of women of reproductive age will never step foot inside a Planned Parenthood in any given year for health care. They love to talk about the services they provide other than abortion, but it takes little effort to uncover the fact that while government funding to them has increased by millions, their preventative services have dropped off a cliff. So that is an important part to understand. Now, Margaret Sanger. All right, you're all aware of Margaret Sanger, right? She is the founder of Planned Parenthood. Well, she has some it just shows you who we're dealing with here, okay? We don't have to be brain surgeons to figure this out. Margaret Sanger began in 1923 the American Birth Control League. It would go on to become Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Now, most people, because this is not what they're involved in, do not know these facts, the things that she said. First thing, she said, our objective is unlimited sexual gratification without the burden of unwanted children. Women must have the right to live, to love, to be lazy, to be an unmarried mother, to create, to destroy. The marriage bed is the most degenerative influence in the social order. The most merciful thing that a family does to one of its infant members is to kill it. Okay, we've got all the stats where this came from. It's called the woman rebel. Second, we should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. She was no dummy. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. This was in a 1939 letter that she wrote, Margaret Sanger, to Dr. Clarence Gamble. 3. Today's eugenics is suggested by the most diverse minds as the most adequate and thorough avenue to the solution of racial, political, and social problems. I think you must agree that the campaign for birth control is not merely of eugenic value, but is practically identical with the final aims of eugenics. Birth control propaganda is thus the entering wedge for the eugenic educator. As an advocate of birth control, I wish to point out that the unbalance between the birth rate of the unfit and the fit, admittedly the greatest present menace to civilization, can never be rectified by the inauguration of a cradle competition between these two classes. In this matter, the example of the inferior classes, the fertility of the feeble-minded, the mentally defective, the poverty-stricken classes should not be held up for emulation. On the contrary, the most urgent problem today is how to limit and to discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective. Okay, it goes on and on. It goes on, and I won't. But just to give you the idea. Okay, now, back to Constance. I couldn't help, Jack, but think of the debacle going on now with leftists rioting and tearing down statues of the Confederate officers, right? With the intention of doing the same with those statues of our founding father, George Washington, including the rest of the founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson, who owned slaves, even calling for Mount Rushmore to be defaced. Why? Because some of these people owned slaves and are now deemed racist. But wait a minute. The most infamous racist of all, Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, has busts in certain places honoring her as a formidable woman, feminist, population controller, hip and happening promoter of women's reproductive rights who supported eugenics to eliminate the black race and the feeble-minded and other minorities by stopping the growth of their populations. That's what eugenics is, stopping the growth of certain people's populations. So now I did my research, Jack, because for one, the Smithsonian in D.C. has the Sanger bust in their Struggle for Justice exhibit. Struggle for Justice, which is supposed to honor those of the past who were champions of justice. A sign beneath the sculpture says that Sanger was, quote, profoundly affected by the physical and mental toll exacted on women by frequent childbirth, miscarriage, and self-induced abortion. Thanks be to God, this is me now, more than a few black pastors, along with other pro-life advocates, rallied outside the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery to demand the removal of the statue. What do you think happened, Jack?
I'm guessing it's still there.
Yep. Officials at the Smithsonian have rejected the request, defending the inclusion of Sanger in their exhibit, describing her as someone who fought, this is a quote, fought to achieve civil rights for disenfranchised or marginalized groups. Really? I mean, the National Portrait Gallery has a bust of her as is Struggle for Justice, which includes people like the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, whose contribution to the civil rights movement is universally admired. And they put this woman, if you want to read a book, a great book called Killer Angel by George Grant, that's what he calls her. But the pastors say, God love them, they will not back down. Margaret Sanger was a racist who wanted to end the black population through birth control and abortion. Why can't we remove all of the busts? And I actually, Jack, I got on images of all the busts that are made of her. You would be amazed how many there are in different places. They can have it both ways. So I'm sure you want to go to a break. You know I'm really fired up here. And but this is not right. They can't have it both ways.
Just getting started on an open line Tuesday. Barbara McGuigan is in the house. If you want to talk to Barbara, the number's 1-800-585-9396. Toll free anywhere in North America. EWTN's Open Line Tuesday with Barbara McGuigan.
Raymond Arroyo.
Part of the success we've had on the world over, I attribute to the audience, my relationship with Mother Angelica, and her teaching me that when you sit with someone, you talk to them, and you create an environment where they will tell you things they wouldn't tell anyone else. That ease, that humor, that warmth, she gave me that, and that's what I try to impart and make a part of every interview we do on The World Over.
The World Over with Raymond Arroyo, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN TV and radio.
Carry EWTN with you everywhere when you download the EWTN app. You can enjoy EWTN TV and radio live streams, shows on demands, prayers and devotionals, and the latest Catholic news. Visit EWTNapps.com today.
Christ is the answer with Father John Riccardo.
John 6, verses 48 to 58. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread, meaning me. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, that a man may eat of it and never die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread which I shall give for the life of the world is my flesh. At which the Jews disputed among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? They're scandalized by this. How is it that we're not? How is it that we just hear this and go, oh yeah, I know that passage? They're just outraged and at least perplexed. Sane people, inspired teachers, wise men, prophets don't say things like this.
This is Bishop John Brungart of the Diocese of Dodge City.
This is Colin Donovan, Vice President for Theology.
This is Father Larry Richards, host of Open Line Thursday. Thanks for listening to EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about the article or the email that Barbara read to you, started last week and reinforced those statistics again this week? I'd love to hear from some of our African-American brothers and sisters, what they think of the statistics and the tactics of Margaret Sanger. That number's 1-800-585-9396. To the phones we go. Our leadoff hitter today is Joe in Rochester, New York, listening to EWTN Radio. Joe, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How can we help?
Barbara, I had a question. Okay, I had a friend of mine whose sibling was dying of cancer, and the doctors had given up on her, and, you know, they gave her a few months to live, and now out of the, you know, to try to relieve her of some of her pain and not eating, and also, you know, you hear a lot about the cannabis oil actually helping to kill cancer cells. He had he gave her some marijuana, and it was illegal, and the same with the cannabis oil. But the thing is, you know, it wasn't for drug dealing. It was to relieve her and to help her, which he claims it did. But the thing is, I wanted to know was, at the time, I don't think he realized that it was a sin, or, you know, even I was thinking, I didn't even think it was a sin at the time. But now I think about it, and I know it was illegal. The thing is, I want to know, what would the Lord look on that as, if, you know, he's trying to help her and relieve her of her misery?
Yeah. You know, here on the left coast in California, that would be called medicinal marijuana, which is legal in California. So you're in New York, I guess, Joe?
Yeah.
And you say it's illegal to have medicinal marijuana in New York, but you have basically what you have is a lady with serious pain, yes?
Absolutely.
I can't imagine that. I just don't know how they treat that in New York. I don't know the laws in New York, but out here, and also in Colorado too. I don't know how many states have now accepted medicinal marijuana, but probably more than just a couple. Do you know, Jack, how many states have?
I don't know how many. I don't know that the church frowns on that. If it's legally prescribed by a doctor, I think the church is okay with it.
Yeah, I can't imagine there would be an issue with that. Joe, I'm sorry, I don't have any more help than that, but the whole idea is he's just trying to alleviate her pain. He's not trying to give her an overdose or anything like that, when that's not permissible. But as long as, even morphine, if you're going to alleviate pain and you have to give high doses of morphine, the motive behind that is not to kill the patient, even though in some cases that might cause her death or his death, but the motive is to keep the person out of pain.
Yeah, and from what I understand, is morphine is worse for you than the marijuana, more dangerous.
I would think, but I'm not a doctor or a nurse, so I would think that would actually weigh in. My producer just said we had 29 states. We have 29 states who would permit medicinal marijuana. So probably it's just a matter of time before they're all going to be in that category. But I appreciate your call, Joe. I really do, and we'll be praying for this dear lady for sure.
Okay, thank you.
God bless you, Joe. Appreciate the phone call. That frees up a line for you at 1-800-585-9396. That's toll-free anywhere in North America. 1-800-585-9396. If you're outside the United States and Canada, your number is 1-205-271-2985, and we'll put you straight to the front of the line at 1-205-271-2985. 2985. We'd love to get an email from you. You can send an email to openline@EWTN.com, or you can text your question to Barbara. Text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a response. Text your first name and your question, message, and data rates may apply. We talk about the nation's largest abortion provider in Planned Parenthood, and the money that they receive from the federal government. You look at some of the civil unrest revolving around some of these statues, and really the thing that they all have in common, Barbara, is that they discount the innate dignity of the human person.
Yeah,
on some level.
On some level. You know, what I was kind of amazed, the National Portrait Gallery director, her name is Kim Sajet, she respectfully declined the black minister's request. They have formed a group called the Ministers Taking a Stand. They have a president by the name of Bishop E.W. Jackson. And so anyway, but back to the director, this was her reasoning behind this. She said, there is no moral test for people to be accepted into the National Portrait Gallery. Her association, now she's talking about Margaret Sanger, with the eugenics movement shadowed her achievements in sex education and contraception, making her a figure of controversy, one whose complexities and contradictions mirror her times. End quote. Now, the gist of this statement, could this not apply also, Jack, to the Confederate generals whose achievements were shadowed by the fact that some owned slaves which practice mirrored their times in the South? This is how it went down in the South. People owned slaves. Not all people mistreated their slaves. I'm not saying the whole practice was right. Of course not. But, it's just a fact of life at that particular time. So what the Bishop E.W. Jackson, the president of Ministers Taking a Stand, said was that they would continue efforts to have the bust of Sanger removed from the Struggle for Justice exhibit, saying that the gallery director's response avoids the issue and whitewashes Sanger. And you can't. But then they didn't stop there. If they must recognize her historical significance, place her with busts of Pharaoh, Herod, Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, Goebbels, Pol Pot, and Dr. Mengele. Jackson said this would put her in proper historical context with the infamous and evil figures who committed genocide. So you see, there are a wonderful group of black ministers that are all together, and Constance also asked that question of me, are they looking at this? Do they see what's going on? Well, more than 14,000 people signed an online petition to have Sanger's bust removed from the exhibit. And, Johnny Hunter, founder of Learn, excellent. He and his wife, Pat, they have been fighting against this forever. Reverend Clenard Childress, he's been on EWTN, probably Johnny Hunter too. He started blackgenocide.org. Then Henry Flowers IV, who I was talking to about, who came up with the statistics. Remember Hispanic Sammy Rodriguez. I find his speech at the March for Life, what was it, not last year, but the year before, it's an all-time great speech. So all these folks are fighting hard battles, especially among those in the black community who support abortion. You see, this is what they're up against. This is what we're up against, and in the church sometimes. We're fighting things that we have people, other Catholics, opposing us on, and these are truths of our faith. So anyway,
grab one of these open phone lines. The number's 1-800-585-9396. It's toll free anywhere in North America. 1-800-585-9396. EWTN's Open Line Tuesday with our very own pro-life warrior, Barbara McGuigan.
Johnette Benkovic.
Did you know that I had been away from the Catholic faith for 10 years? I credit my grandmother's rosary for bringing me back home to our Holy Catholic Church. She had 13 grandchildren and prayed a rosary each day for each one of us. That's 13 rosaries a day. I know that it was Grandma's rosary that tilled the soil of my hardened heart to eventually bring me back to our Lord Jesus Christ, the one who is the way, the truth, and the life.
Women of Grace with Johnette Benkovic, Monday through Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Celebrating 100 years of Fatima with Monsignor Charles Pope.
On May 13th, 1917, in her first apparition to the three children, Our Lady of Fatima said, "Are you willing to offer yourselves to God and bear all the sufferings He wills to send you as an act of reparation for the conversion of sinners?" It's a powerful question. It's a question that's also being asked of us. Are we willing? Do we pray for the conversion of sinners? Are we willing to fast? Are we willing to accept sufferings that the Lord might send us so that sinners can be converted? Are we even willing to suffer ourselves for our own conversion? So often we simply want things to be well, but we don't want to be part of the solution. We ask God to fix things. But God asks us, will you join me in this great work of the conversion of sinners?
Join EWTN as we celebrate the 100th anniversary of Fatima. Visit EWTN.com/Fatima.
New from EWTN Publishing, The Four Last Things. Father Wade Menezes presents the truths of salvation. This guide will help you become eternity-minded in your daily life by demonstrating the reality of hell, dispelling sentimental notions about heaven, and bringing to light key truths you need to know about death and judgment. The Four Last Things. New from EWTN Publishing. Now available at EWTNRC.com.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
You know what's going on right now, Barbara?
What?
As we speak, Father William Wack is being ordained a bishop and installed as the 6th bishop of the Diocese of Pensacola in Tallahassee, Florida. It had started right when our show started, right at the top of the hour, and I mentioned that so that all of our listeners can keep the soon-to-be newly ordained Bishop Wack in their prayers as the newest shepherd of the flock of Jesus Christ here in the United States. And then at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, Charles Dew will join Al Cresta. He'll be talking about the making and unmaking of a racist, and that's a very topical
Yes.
Al Cresta right on the cutting edge of what's going on in America, as always. That's 4 Eastern right here on EWTN Radio. Back to the phones we go. Michael is in Spokane, Washington. He dialed 1-800-585-9396. Michael, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, Jack. Thank you for taking my call. Congratulations to the new bishop in Florida, yes. Pensacola. Well, as we know, Barbara, medical methods can be seen 3 to 4 weeks after conception. Heartbeat can be detected 2 to 3 weeks after conception. Mm-hmm. So bring a friend and stand near a Planned Parenthood building. Pray the rosary, or stand or sit. Be there at that Planned Parenthood place in a peaceful manner. And at the end of World War II, as you know, the people of Auschwitz and Dachau concentration camps, the villagers, were brought to Auschwitz and Dachau by General Eisenhower and forced to look at the dead.
Yes.
These villagers claimed they never knew what was going on. So are we any better today in America? So bring a friend, sit yourself at that Planned Parenthood place, pray the rosary or sit. You don't have to be Catholic. Speak for the unborn. Write letters to the local people at local levels, city council, write to them. State levels, very important.
Yeah.
Representatives, and of course, Congress telling we don't want Planned Parenthood.
Yes. Good job, Michael. And those are all very important things. What I would add, just a little P.S. to all the good things you said, ask them if they know what abortion is, what it looks like, and what it does. Because a lot of people, believe it or not, today, I mean, this is why after the Holocaust, not during, but after the Holocaust, in Germany, we saw all of these gruesome pictures of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, emaciated bodies and bodies in a ditch, and people just gasp when they think of something like this. And they need to see what abortion is and does. After all, Michael, the Blessed Mother showed the little children at Fatima what hell looked like. So we need to keep that in mind and not spare people this. And what I would always say, I wouldn't force anyone. God doesn't force us to do anything. But I would say, try to offer up if you feel any emotional pain, and who doesn't, and even physical pain. Get sick to your stomach when you see what abortion looks like. Offer that up for what these little children have just gone through, because their pain is so far magnified from the pain that you are feeling when they have an abortion. So I would suggest that as well, good man, and I appreciate you calling.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. God bless you.
God bless you, Michael. Appreciate the phone call. That opens up a line for you at 1-800-585-9396. Next stop, the great state of Illinois. Ed is listening to EWTN Radio in Illinois. Ed, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Barb. I had a question. This actually came up with respect to an earlier caller. It kind of jogged my memory.
Mm-hmm.
Calling about have you had any experiences with abuse of morphine and by hospice with people who are in terminal stages, in the sense that they're using it beyond the comfort zone to bring about a premature death.
Yeah.
And I'll let you talk about it, but I've had a couple of personal experiences where there's very little doubt that this has occurred due to conflicting opinions within the family who are descendants of the deceased. But go ahead.
Well, Ed, personally, my husband and I were not invited to the family meeting when my mother-in-law was put into the hospital, and she had a couple of leg amputations. And now this wasn't hospice, this was in the hospital, and that we weren't invited to that meeting as to what end of life practices we would choose. And so the nurse actually said to me that it was a male nurse who said to me, "Oh, we help them along here. We help them along."
Yeah. Exactly.
Because she wasn't near, she was in pain, but they were controlling her pain, and differences were mended, and God has His reasons. He's working in that soul. She was baptized at the last minute, thanks be to God, and but this was a practice at this particular hospital. They helped them along, is what he said, by overdoses of morphine, and we left that evening late. And we said we'd be back in the morning, and she died. And we were told she died about an hour after we left. But we did pray the rosary with her, and we did she could still hear. Hearing is the last faculty to go when a person is dying. She couldn't see any longer, but she could hear. But here's what happened, and I'll never forget this. I got the chills now just thinking about it. I was more of a frustration rather than a daughter-in-law to her. I loved her dearly, and I really tried so hard to show her what a Catholic woman, a good Catholic woman, how they respond to things, how they act, why they believe what they believe, and all this. But she wasn't buying it a lot of the times, especially when I was pro-life, and when I was arrested for being pro-life. That whole thing was just a big uproar in my family. At the end, before we left, she put both of her arms out to me to give me a big hug. I was astounded by this. I was the last one to be hugged by her. The last person on earth. The person who she believed that there was nothing wrong. She actually gave me a book one time of great women, and Margaret Sanger was in the book. She wanted me to read about Margaret Sanger. and we made sure she was baptized, and that erases all of her sins, and everything was good. And I received the final hug from this woman on this earth. So, God is so good. He works good out of everything. My heart broke many times over things she did and said to me. But anyway, it all worked out. But yes, to answer your question, sorry for the long tome, but I personally witnessed that.
So, yeah, thank you very much for your personal experience. So you're personally agreeing that this is certainly a possibility.
It's a possibility, and it shouldn't be, only to alleviate pain. Like I said earlier, if it's extreme pain and that does the person in, well, the motive was not to kill the person, it was to alleviate their extreme pain.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so many factors that enter into the decision as to how much to use, and certainly I think the organizations, including the hospitals, are thinking about the expense of keeping the person alive when they see them in the later stages, but to actually go over the line, and that's been our experience a couple of times, and I don't think. Well, a lot of people that say, for example, hire hospice, I think they're pretty naive about this, because hospice gives them a line, at least this has been our personal experience at a local level, gives them a line about, they stay within the boundaries. But in fact,
they don't always.
I'm 97% sure that at least in the one case, where they were involved, that they went over the line at the urging of other members of the family, even though they assured us that wouldn't happen.
Well, I've been told plenty of stories, Ed, about this, of certain hospices, and so you have to know, when my daddy was dying, we made sure that he was not in any pain. And we made sure that he did not have any. He had a little bit of morphine because he would have little fits when he would kind of come to. He'd go in and out of consciousness. And so we wanted to make him happy and calm. But we made say, you're not going to overdose my dad. I mean, I was very frank. But they weren't like that at all. Anyway, so maybe I should have said it a little more graciously. But
okay. So you don't suspect overdoses, unnecessary overdoses?
Well, not if you say something. Not if you say, "Don't you dare! Don't you dare!" See, we weren't allowed into the meeting with because my husband and I would have said, "No, don't just kill her."
Well, in this case, the power of attorney was one of the siblings, and this was her request with.
Oh, well, see, the plot thickens, doesn't it? The plot thickens. Yeah. And it's a problem. It's a problem. But, I just had another email. Maybe we'll take it next week. But you need a durable power of attorney for health care.
Yeah,
the DPAHC. Yep, you do. And then you need the PMDD, the Protective Medical Decisions Document. These are both advanced directives. A living will can be dangerous, so you need a DPAHC and a PMDD. So, that's very important.
P what, Barb?
PMDD is the Protective Medical Decisions Document, and then you need the DPAHC is the Durable Power of Attorney for Health Care. That's what that means.
Yeah, she had the durable power of attorney healthcare.
Okay, she had that,
but I don't know about the other one. And the discussion had been held with the attending physician, but in their benign wisdom, the home decided not to contact the physician at the time the hospice medication morphine was given, and it was 3:00 in the morning, which are questionable.
Yeah.
Questionable times to die if you're on morphine, I think. But
Mainly the important thing, Ed, and pardon me for interrupting, but I've got to get to other calls, but mainly make sure that they have the sacrament of the sick. They see a priest before they die. They make a good confession. You know, all that. That's critical because you can't control sometimes what other people are going to do.
Right. All that happened, all that happened prior to the death.
Praise God. Well, see, then, it's just that we don't hasten death. That is not what you do. That is not because our Lord is working in that soul. Maybe we can't communicate with that person at all, but God can.
Well, thank you.
God can.
Thank you.
You're
very much,
welcome. God bless you, good man. Thanks for calling.
You know, Barbara, Will called, and he wants to know why you have a problem with him living.
What? Will call?
You said no living will.
Oh. Jack, you're crazy.
Anyway, I'm crazy. I'm simple. That's my problem.
No, you're not simple.
I'm a little
That's
too simple. I'm so simple that sometimes just your mainstream news sources just kind of go over my head. That's why I love Church Pop.
So do I.
ChurchPop.com, and they have all kinds of stuff. They have pictures, which are good for a simple person like me. They explain a lot of very deep philosophical terms in some very simple manners with some videos and some infographics. I love where they'll have 13 facts about the Eucharist in one infographic and things like that. So be sure to check them out at churchpop.com.
You know what? I like the byline, Jack. Make holy all the things.
Yes. All the
I love
things.
that. All the things. Make holy all the things.
We'll head now to Jacksonville, Florida. Jim is in Jacksonville listening on Queen of Peace Radio. Jim, you're on with Barbara.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Barbara.
Hi. Hey. How can I help?
I'm not a Catholic, so I'm not as exposed to the pro-life kind of movement but I do listen a lot, and I'm interested in the Catholic faith. But I'm also interested in biology and the sciences.
Yes.
And this is more of a philosophical, and I just like you to comment on this, because in my studies, it seems that in the biological world, with the exception of plants, that all other life consumes and kills other life in order to survive. So how does that reconcile with a pro-life position in the Catholic Church when nature seems to be, the converse of that?
Well, that would be possibly in pagan cultures if you're going to apply that fact to human life, to human beings. We know of people in China that with their one-child policy, they'd leave their baby girls, drown them in lakes or leave them out. I mean, this is when you don't know God. You don't understand what it means to be sacred. You don't get all those things. But, and also, where else? In Rome, in the pagan Rome, they used to leave little children out to die on the hills and stuff. This is when you don't know who God is and who you are, his child, and what he expects of you. You see, that you love, honor, and obey him. This is what a lot of people don't know.
So what, in the case of the horrible scenario where a person gets consumed by an animal, what does that mean?
A person, if he's consumed by or she is consumed by an animal, I don't think she necessarily threw herself or himself at the animal. It was some sort of a terrible accident. Of course, if you walk in front... Yesterday, my mother was standing on her porch, and she heard this hissing sound, God's honest truth. And she turned around, and my brother, who's a cowboy, he walked around the front of the house, and there was a fat rattlesnake a foot from my mother's leg. And he screamed at her to get into the house, and she doesn't hear very well, but she heard this hissing sound. And she made it into the house, and then my brother shot the rattlesnake's head. So, in that instance, right there, she lives, on a ranch. You're going to have rattlesnakes in the hot summers sometimes. So, these are occasions where that's human nature. No, what do I say? That's the nature of the snake, right? He probably came down to get water somehow. And, but he would have killed my mother, my 91-year-old mother. Can you imagine?
I don't like the way you looked at me when you said the snake had human nature.
I got confused about calling the snake human. I hope that helps a bit, good man. But you know what? Keep listening. You're welcome. Keep listening to Catholic Radio. Will you do that for me? Okay.
God bless you, Jim. Appreciate the phone call. We had Matthew on YouTube and Mickey called in, both wanting to know your reaction to the latest developments. Well, they're not late developments, but they've been recently publicized practices in Iceland regarding the elimination, in their mind, of Down syndrome in their country.
Oh. I think it's disgusting. I think it's despicable. These little kids, Jack, are probably the only angels among us. I mean, we know we have guardian angels, and sometimes they take human form. The way I look at these little kids, how many parents can say that their children will never offend God? How many parents can say that? So when I say they're probably the only angels among us, they're sinless beings. And if they do, have some kind of a, pitch a fit or something like that, it's not that they're aware totally that, that sort of thing. I mean, depending, I guess, on their intellectual faculties, their capabilities. But, it's terrible. It's terrible. So yeah, that would be my answer. How about you, Jack? It's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. Any families with Down syndrome family members, will unanimously, express to you the great blessing that those members of the families have been for everybody and everybody that they come in contact with.
Exactly. I mean, whenever God takes something away, and in their case, it would be their individuality to a degree. I mean, they have all the same features pretty much, and, that little crease in their hands. But whenever he takes something away, he always replaces it with something so great that no one else, supposedly calling themselves normal. I mean, I believe, and I hate the word retarded, and I would always say I believe that we're all retarded. Some of us know it and some of us don't. Because we're all sinners. We all sin. And even though we sometimes have such degrees of self-importance, you're not going to find that with Down syndrome children. They love, unconditionally. You can be, and I've seen this before, someone be a total jerk to a Down syndrome child. Now, who knows? Maybe out of frustration. I don't know what the backstory was. But that little child just kept wanting to hug this person. Yep.
It's like the cat who gravitates towards the person who doesn't like cats in the room.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Back to the phones we go. Don is in Fairborn, Ohio, listening to EWTN on St. Gabriel Radio. Don, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Barbara.
How can we help?
Well, I wanted to call and mention something that I had seen on EWTN. Mm-hmm. They were speaking about Mother Angelica.
Ah, yes.
And she was, in her final hours. And Mother wanted to not have anything to help her with the pain.
Oh,
but
I believe
it got to the point where they felt they had to go ahead and do something.
Oh.
So I'm not sure, what they used. It might have been morphine, but it shows that sometimes you have to use something like that to help.
Yes. I hear you, Don, and that's absolutely true. I mean, like I said, my dad he would just have these moments where he would just get so anxious, and he would rise up, and that's because he just needed a little bit, something to help him settle down, So I could understand that. And I can also understand Mother Angelica saying she doesn't want any painkillers, just so she could offer up her suffering to God.
Well, and she also said once on the live show that she told the sisters that if she was ever in a situation where she had to be hooked up on the machines, she wanted to be hooked up to every machine that you could possibly hook her up to keep her alive, because she knew once she went into the presence of God, she would never be able to offer her sufferings for him again.
Yep. And that's just true. It. I mean, I told my husband, you hook me up and don't you dare pull one of those plugs. And he laughs. I mean, but it's true, because God is working in our souls. He's working. Even if we can't communicate to our loved ones, He can communicate with us. And the Blessed Mother. Oh, goodness.
But it's a matter of mercy sometimes to be able to relieve someone's
we're not all Mother Angelica.
For practical reasons. And not only for the person in question, but for those that are attending. So
absolutely, I hear you. Absolutely, you are right. And the church doesn't even say someone has to suffer severely. I mean, that's not the church teaching. If you have serious pain, we can help you with that. Sure.
And that's permitted. Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks so much. God bless.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. All glory to God.
And along these lines, Deacon John wrote in from St. Peters, Minnesota, and he said that the Christian hospice, he had experience with the Christian hospice that didn't give his wife any of the medications that he didn't approve. And it should be noted that there are plenty of wonderful hospice organizations out there.
Oh, of course. Yes.
As a matter of fact, I would probably say the overwhelming majority of them.
I would hope that's the case.
Hospice, anyway. I think most people that are in the hospice realm of things, on some level, have gotten into it for the right reason. Wouldn't you say?
I would say that. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of them have had a heads up too on the importance of if the person is not in pain, you don't overdose them. I think that's. They're starting to see people, who are giving what side they are on, and the pro-life side, and what they expect, for sure.
Well, Barbara, we've come to the end of another hour.
Oh.
My apologies to Steve in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, but we are flat out of time. Let's do it again next week. What do you say?
I'm hoping I won't be moving, but I might be there.
The move that wouldn't end in Barbara
That
McGuigan.
wouldn't end. We haven't even loaded a truck yet, Jack. Oh, goodness.
Oh, goodness. On behalf of our host, Barbara McGuigan, producer Jeff Burson, and our call screener, Mr. Matt Gubensky, I'm Jack Williams. Thanks so much for joining us here on EWTN's Open Line Tuesday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. Father Mitch Pacwa will be in the house answering your questions on church teaching and theology and philosophy and ancient languages and scripture and all that good stuff. So be sure to join us tomorrow with Father Mitch. Until we get together then, God bless.